Good evening, and thank you for joining me. It is always good to see my friends in the chat, which I am seeing them come in. Let's start this video. There we go. So, it is a stormy, at least where I am, it's a stormy night. I'm getting thunder and lightning and some continual rain, on and off rain, I should say, not really continual, but it's certainly one of those nights here. It's been hot all day, and a lot of times that's what it culminates in, right? Thunderstorms. But it makes for a pretty spooky atmosphere. And I'm happy for you guys to join me to listen to my latest story. I have my traditional drink here, which is an old fashioned, which I like to have on a Friday to just relax a bit. Well, let me say hello to folks in the chat before I do anything. Hello, Citrullo. Hello, Adam. Mike F, as always, is here. Arm Distance is here. Todd Father saying hi. I know he probably has to work tonight. Thank you so much for stopping in and saying hi. Let's see. What else is going on here? Let me see here. What is happening here? I don't want to miss anybody, of course. I saw Gina. There she is. I saw Gina. I see. Let's see. Who else do I see here? Tammy C is watching on the TV. Best way to do it. Sit back, relax, put it on the TV. Always a good way. Especially on a Friday, a long week. End of a long week. And so in case anyone's interested, the bourbon that I'm drinking is something called 1792. It's really good, and it's not expensive at all. It's pretty cheap as bourbons go these days. A lot of times you see, at least I see it in the liquor store, in the Bottle King or wherever. There's a lot of new bourbons out there, and a lot of them cost a lot of money. This one, not a lot of money, $28 to $32, that range, which isn't bad. And I like it. It's smooth. It's not rough. It's not too much. It's not too heavy. Does not have a lot of alcohol in it for a bourbon's sake. I mean, a bourbon does have, it's 46% alcohol, but some of them are even higher than that. Some of them could be 100%, 100 proof at times. So I like it. It's small and it's interesting. 1792 is the year that Kentucky, where all bourbon comes from, Kentucky, entered the Union. So it's kind of cool, little history point in there that they made the name of their company 1792 is small batch. Small batch is the small batch bourbon. So if you're interested in bourbon, or just if you like bourbon, or if you're just interested in what I'm drinking, this is the stuff I'm drinking right now. I try to try different ones. Not as much as wine. That's a lot more expensive than wine, and you're not going to have that much of a difference like you would in wine. But I do like a bourbon once a week, and that's what I'm drinking right now. Mike F says brandy. Yeah, well, of course. I mean brandy. I like. I do like brandy. I like actual cognac though. Is what I drink, which is brandy, but brandy from Cognac from France, from the region in France. I could hear the rain hammering at the window here. Jack Daniels, yeah, I don't drink Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels is too sweet for me, and that's not bourbon. That's Tennessee whiskey. Different, similar, very similar, but different, technically different. So. So we got a bunch of people here. I'm glad you're joining me. I know that there's other shows on, so I feel honored that you would spend some time here with me. I'm going to get out my candle here because when the candle lights, that means the story begins. Put a fresh new candle in the candlestick, which, by the way, I absolutely love this candlestick holder. It's so cool, and I got it from a garage sale. It's pretty darn cool. I did not cut this wick, though, but whatever. We'll do what we can. Oh, you're at home? Oh, Tafa, I thought you were working. Well, no. Sit back and relax. Sit back and relax and enjoy. Enjoy. I also have my new mouse for my Mac, which it's been painful doing this the whole time, but I finally got a mouse for the Mac, which I got it through the Amazon Prime, and it was like an Amazon sale this week. So I got it. I took advantage of that and got it. Makes life a little bit easier. As if it's a match. And this is pretty cool too. Here are my previous candles from previous story times. I keep the end of the candle for each one of them. I don't know if you could hear that thunder, but it just rumbled a little bit. Yes, please thank you, Gina. Yes, please hit the like button. It really does make a difference. I think it really does. It does make a difference in terms of how YouTube will share it. We'll share the video out there. The more people that like it, the more likely they are to share it to new audiences. So that would be pretty cool from my perspective. And I appreciate that as well. But anyway, well, let's start the story. This story is not a long one. It's not a long one. It's a pretty short story. And I want to give credit where credit is due. I mean, this is a result. It's based on a story written by a woman by the name of Edith Litchie Stewart. So, and in case you didn't know, I'm going to make this clear right now so that you do know what I do. A lot of times I'll find stories, but I will take liberties with the stories. I don't tell the story verbatim. I'll change them a little bit and I'll make them my own. And I may put a different twist in it. I may change little things around here and there. So, but I do want to get credit to the original story that gave me the idea. And this was a short story that she wrote. And it came from this book, this book here, which is called 100 Ghastly Little Ghost Stories. And it's What does it say? I mean, I got it at Barnes and Nobles many years ago. It's a collection of short ghost stories. So it's pretty cool. It's a nice little thing to read. I was out reading it by the pool the other day, last weekend. It was fun. I just sit there and then I fall asleep reading it, take a little nap. It's nice. But anyway, this story struck me in there. So I figured I'd tell it. And like I said, I made a little bit changes here and there to make it a little bit more mine than it is, the original. But tonight's story takes place in the 1890s out in Arizona. And at the time, even though electricity was gaining popularity and being put in the cities, there wasn't much there. It really was, for the most part, in the early 1890s, was still really the Old West out there. They may not have had the gunfights and such and the American Indian raids and stuff, but and there's still, actually, I think Geronimo actually took place in the 1890s, so that still was going on. But it was really still kind of in the dark ages, so to speak. There was no electricity, and people believed in a lot of different spiritual and ghostly tales and curses and such. So that's when this one takes place. This takes place in the 1890s. And our story begins when a professor by the name of Carhart, who was a professor in the University of Chicago and who had a bunch of trouble out there and actually got dismissed and decided to take a sabbatical, so to speak, out west, gain his senses and decide what his next move would be. So he made the trip out west to Arizona and ended up coming to this kind of desolate area out in the canyons where very small towns, very small, like old Western towns surrounded by canyons. So Professor Carhart ends up going to this town and spending quite a time there, spending quite a few days there, kind of weeks there, I should say, just kind of taking up residence and looking around, looking for things to write about. He fancied himself a bit of an archaeologist, so looking for sites to dig, etc. And he did that. And one day he turned up missing. And in fact, it was kind of a stir in that little town. What happened to Professor Carhart? And what happens is the local sheriff there ends up finding a satchel. And in that satchel, there's a diary. And that diary was written by the hand of Professor Carhart. I don't know if you heard that thunder. And this story is based on what was in his diary. So the diary begins when he has been in this local town for a while, and he decides to hire a stagecoach to take him out into the canyons, and so he can do a little exploring, etc. So he hires a stagecoach and takes him out in winding through the canyons. And the stagecoach driver is a bit talkative, doesn't see a lot of people, so very happy to have a passenger. And he's a bit talkative. Well, Carhart is a bit arrogant and really not interested in talking, and kind of dismisses the stagecoach driver, not really interested in what he has to say, even though the guy was a wealth of knowledge in terms of the local folklore in the local area. But that was a big one. Carhart did not feel that he would condescend, I guess, to these local yokels. But one day he was out taking him, and they're driving along, and the stagecoach is driving, and the stagecoach driver is whipping his whip well above the horses, making them go faster. And they come around the bend, and in the distance, they see an old cabin, an old adobe cabin. At first, it just seems very banal, very unassuming, very old, very deserted looking. And in fact, there were windows and a doorway, but there was no door on it. There were no windows in the windows. There was no glass in the windows. The glass had long been shattered and gone away. So as they're passing this adobe cabin, Carhart suddenly says to the stagecoach driver, "What is this? What is that there?" So the stagecoach driver kind of looks down behind him at Carhart, who's in the back, in the stagecoach, and says, "Nothing you're interested in." And Carhart says, "No, I want to know, what is it? What is that place?" And the stagecoach driver's reply is, "No place to be after dark." And he whips the horses as they go faster. And Carhart writes how the stagecoach driver did not really want to speak about this place at all. In fact, it was the sight of the place that made him go faster and drive the horses to go faster, as if to gain space between himself and this place. But Carhart wasn't going to take that. Carhart was going to press the issue. And he continued to question the driver as to what is this all about. So the driver reluctantly gives in and says, all right, I'm going to basically, that old cabin is a place where they found 5 graves several years ago. And 5 graves under 6 trees. And at that point, Carhart looks back and he notices the cabin is still in sight. And he notices the 6 trees hanging over in front of the cabin. And the driver goes on and says that was a notorious hideout for a local rustling gang. And they were quite a rough crowd. In fact, no one would mess with them at all. The sheriff would not go near them. And they basically had their run of the mill of the area. They kind of ruled and did what they wanted to do. Until one day, they kind of vanished. And passersby came by the cabin and found, instead of the rustlers or horses or anything, all they found were 5 graves in front of 5 trees in front of the cabin. No one knew how or when their deaths occurred, nor who buried these bodies. So Carhart was fascinated by this story and said, "Well, what happened to the bodies? Why would?" And the stagecoach driver said, "Well, because they simply no one claimed them. No one had anything to do with them. So we just dropped them back into their graves, covered them up, and that's where they lie to this day." So Carhart says, "So that's why people are, that's why you're afraid of this place." And he says, "Oh yeah, that's why I'm afraid of this place, because it's more than just a grave site. It's cursed. The place is definitely cursed. If you noticed, there were 6 trees there. And the locals say that place will remain cursed until there is a 6th body to go under that 6th tree." Well, Carhart was bah-humming this. He kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, that's for the local yokels. That's for the country bumpkins to believe. I'm not interested in that." So anyway, they proceed to go back to the hotel. And Carhart, spends each dinner, but this cabin has been weighing on his mind. It's been weighing on him. It had a certain grasp of him. It caught something in him. It stirred something in him. And he also heard and questioned around the town a bit when he got back in the local saloon. And rumor has it that these were not just rustlers, but that these rustlers also had a gold mine that they had found, and they were mining it at times, and that there was a wealth of money to be had there. But no one ever found the gold mine. With their death, the location of this gold mine, faded into history. No one knows exactly where it is. So that also piqued his interest a lot. So Carhart decides, I'm going to go back to that cabin tonight. I'm going to see what's in there. I'm going to see if I can find anything, maybe a clue here and there as to what occurred, and also maybe to find out about that gold. Where could that gold be? So Carhart sets out in the night, and it takes him quite a while. He takes his lantern with him. It takes him about 2 hours because he's on foot. He didn't have the luxury of the stagecoach driver. The stagecoach driver would not take him back there. So he eventually gets there. He gets there just before midnight. And, he shines his lantern into the window. And what he sees is simply a table with six chairs. Six chairs, some old cards, playing cards strewn around the room, some poker chips, and some broken bottles, some broken whiskey bottles here and there. Basically nothing, dust. And he's kind of disappointed. What did he think he was going to find there? So he turns and begins to leave. As he's leaving, he sees the graves, and he pauses for a minute. Now, and he begins to look at the graves and the trees. And he notices that the trees are very gaunt and hung over and actually withering away, but still strong enough to exist, but kind of dead-looking trees. And he begins to decide to move on when suddenly it's 12. He notices on his watch that it's 12 midnight. And in doing so, out of the corner of his eyes, he sees, almost simultaneously with the stroke of midnight, how a light seems to start to appear inside the cabin. So his first thought is, someone else is here. Someone else had the same idea I had. Someone else is looking for riches, to solve this mystery, maybe. Who knows? So he proceeds to go back to one of the windows, the glassless windows, and peer inside it. He lowers his lantern because inside there is this light from the candle. And so he can see whatever's in there from the candlelight. And what he sees through that window kind of makes him freeze and actually shivers. It makes him shiver because what he sees is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, each sitting at a chair around the table. Each had long, wrangly hair hanging down in front of their faces. In each one of their eyes was sunken in, almost as if they hadn't had any eyes. The skin on their face was loose and hanging off of their skulls to some degree. Their clothes were tattered and ripped, covered in mud. And in each one of their bony hands, he sees that each is holding a hand of cards. So at this point, he cannot believe his eyes. What is he seeing? Could this be real? Could this be what he's actually seeing? Are there people here? Are these zombies? Are these what are these things? And he grasps on to the window because he's so frightened that he feels himself getting faint. And so he does that and he recovers. He gains his senses and he begins to watch. And he notices his curiosity really, really takes hold here. His scientific and his professorial curiosity takes home. He has to find out what this is. If this is real, he's going to figure out how it's real. So he watches and he sees slowly they begin to play cards. Not a sound. He can't hear a sound. Not a word is said. Only the cards are being played. And they're going around the table. And as he's watching, he suddenly feels as if he's being watched himself. And then he notices as he picks up his lantern how all 5 of these beings are now looking at him. And they're looking at him not with hatred, not with anger, nor any type of ghastly expressions. They're just staring at him with emptiness. And at the same time, one of them raises his hand towards him and motions towards him to the empty chair that sits next to the dealer. Now, Carhart is overcome by this compulsion to enter and sit down. And he does just that. He enters the cabin and takes the 6th seat next to the dealer. And as he does this, he is dealt a hand of cards. And he begins to play. Now, there are poker chips around, but there's no money. What are we playing for? He says. He gets no response. But for some reason, he felt the stakes were very high, very, very high, and that he was afraid what would occur if he lost. But he still played. And he played and played and played, hand after hand. And each hand he lost. And as much as he tried to win, as much as he tried to change his strategy, he lost. He lost. Now, not a sound is said, not a noise is heard. But time is going by fast as he's playing these cards. And suddenly, he notices through the window a shine of the dawn as the sun begins to rise over the local hill, the cliffs or the canyon next to him. And as the sunlight beam hits the candle instantly goes out. And with that, each of the 5 card players fades into nothingness. No one is there. He finds himself completely alone. Well, Carhart is shaken by this event pretty bad. In fact, he gets up and he runs in frightened terror. He runs and he runs and he runs and he runs and he doesn't stop running until he gets back to the town. And when he gets to the town, he runs through the hotel right up to his room, locks the door, jumps into bed, and sobs to himself underneath his pillows and covers. What did he see? How could he explain this? How could his scientific mind explain this? An educated man, a teacher, a professor, how could he explain what he just experienced? So as the day went on, he began to gain his senses back. And for some reason, there was something in him that said he knew that he had to go back. He had to go back. He had to go back because he had to figure out what he saw. But he also had to go back because something told him that there were two more days of poker to play, 2 more tournaments that had to be played. And he was bent on winning. He never believed in luck. He never believed in the chance of the cards. He was a man of science, and he figured he would find a way to win. He was not going to be vested by these ghouls. He would win that poker tournament. And at this point, the day begins to wane, and it begins to become dark again. And at this point, he says, I need to go. And he tells the innkeeper, the hotel keeper that he's leaving. Now, there's whispers in the town about where is he going? What is he doing? What is this guy doing? Is he insane? What is he doing? As he goes off into the night. Well, Carhart gets there just before midnight. And again, he finds what he found the next day. Nothing. Nothing there at all. Nothing. So he sits down in his chair, his designated chair, and he just waits. He patiently waits. And like clockwork, at 12 a.m., the candle begins to light. And after the candle is lit, each one of the players appears in his seat. And the hands begin to be dealt. Now, Carhart implements his strategy. He plays the best games that he's ever played, and he wins. For a change, he's winning. He feels empowered. He feels like he has made the right decision in coming back here. He is going to win this. And he also figures, although a word wasn't spoken, he figures if I win this, the prize has got to be the knowledge of where the gold mine is. So he plays on, and he's winning hand after hand after hand. And he begins to become more confident. He begins to become more cocky. And he begins to taunt his companions. He laughs. He chuckles. He tries to shoot back and forth with braggadocio of how great he is and how bad they are. But he gets no response. They simply play their hands. In fact, they don't even look at him. They play their hands, they deal the cards, and they play their hands. And their silence is infuriating him because he's won. He won, and he needs the satisfaction. He deserves the satisfaction of telling them off, of showing them that he's better than they are. And just as that occurs, he notices once again, the light has shone. The light is shown, the candle goes out, dawn is upon us, and the players fade. The cards fall to the table, and he's alone once again. Well, this time he's not running in terror. This time he is happy. This time he's confident. He's won. He has won the second round of the tournament. He is going to win the whole thing. And he skips out of the cabin, jumping over the gravestones, chuckling and laughing, not paying much reverence to them as to whether they're there or not. In fact, he eventually makes his way back to the town. And the townspeople notice him being very happy now, very confident, very chest banging. What has occurred? And people will come up to him and ask him, what's going on? And he says not a word. He won't say a word because, after all, if he wins, the gold mine will be his, and everyone wants the gold mine. Gold will turn anyone into a demon, and he will not tell a soul because they'll all want his gold. So that day, he's once again goes about his business. He eats a good dinner. He's eagerly awaiting his third and final night where he's going to win the secret of the gold mine. And when he does, that night does come. That night comes, and he's in the hall of the hotel. And in fact, some people hear him as he walks out the door. And he says to himself, they've heard him say this, that what am I doing here? Time is a wasting. The game must begin, and I'm late. They're waiting for me. And he goes out the door into the darkness once again for a third time. So that night goes by. The morning comes, and Professor Carhart does not return to the hotel. The day goes by. The professor doesn't come back. Now, at this point, the hotel clerk is getting a little worried. This guy owes him money. He did not pay his bill. He has left nothing in his room but a journal. That's it. So The innkeeper begins to ask questions around town. Has anyone seen Professor Carhart? Has anyone seen him? Does anyone know what happened to him? And he gets blank stares. He gets, I don't know, shrugged shoulders. No one knows. And he's thinking, well, maybe the stage driver knows. The stage driver brought him to this town. Might he know? So he goes to the stage driver and he asks the stage driver, did you take Carhart anywhere? Where is he? I need my money. The stage driver says not a word other than, I don't think it's a good idea to look for Carhart. And he tells the innkeeper how he brought him past out into the canyons, and then how Carhart was fascinated with the cabin that they all know about and they all know to stay away from. So the two of them go to the sheriff and they take with them the journal, and that's how the sheriff reads the journal. So he explains, the innkeeper explains to the sheriff what has occurred and how he needs to get his money and he needs to find Carhart. So the sheriff takes a ride out to the old cabin. And when he gets there, it looks the same as it always has. He's been by here quite a few times. The poker chips are on the floor, the broken whiskey bottles, the cards are on the table. Everything is covered in dust. There's no evidence of any living being ever being there. So the sheriff figures this lead has gone dry. This lead has gone cold. I better go off and look elsewhere. Maybe he was killed in an Indian raid. Maybe he was captured by an Indians. Maybe additional rustlers or bandits got him. Who knows? Anything is possible. Or perhaps he just died in the desert. Went off and died in the desert, bitten by a rattlesnake. Who knows? So the sheriff turns and begins to leave. And as he's leaving, he walks past the graves, but something doesn't seem right to him. As he turns and looks back at the graves, something was definitely different. And to his surprise, he counts 6 graves, not 5. Well, the sheriff was shocked. Horrified, I guess, to some degree. Like, what? How on earth did a 6th grave get here? It's been years with only 5 graves. So the sheriff jumps on his horse, goes off, gets the undertaker. They come back, and they proceed to dig up the fresh 6th grave. And what they find in that 6th grave is indeed Professor Carhart, with perfectly normal, no wounds, no evidence of death. Nothing. Simply dead. No explanation, no reason for anything. And so at that point, the sheriff takes, the undertaker recovers the grave. They head back to town and they tell the undertaker, they tell the sheriff tells the hotel keeper, I'm sorry, but Professor Carhart is dead. In fact, I don't have any money to give you. Unfortunately, this is what you're stuck with. But one thing is for sure is that we know what happened to him. He went out to that cabin, and for some reason, somehow, he ended up dead. And the innkeeper says to the sheriff, well, what am I, how could this be? Aren't we going to find anything about it? And aren't we going to figure out what happened? How can we just accept this? And at that point, the stage driver was listening, and he took it upon himself to join the conversation and says, well, I'm not going out there, and I don't think anybody else could, unless you want to play the last game of poker. And at that point, everyone kind of just shivered a bit, turned away, and let dead dogs lie, so to speak. And no one ever found out the means of death of Professor Carhart, or how or who buried him. So you add that to the list of that town and of the mysteries of that town, where 5 went to 6, and that haunted cabin is a place that no one will ever go to again. So that's the story. That is the story. And I'm told that it is a story of fiction, but it's also based on a folklore story from out in Arizona. So who knows? Gold has brought more people to their doom than we know. But Mr. Professor Carhart should have been a better card player, I guess. And maybe he wouldn't have met his fate. So that's my story for tonight. As the thunder strikes and the rain pours. And that's how it goes. So I see, who would I not say hello to? I don't think I said hello to Adam. Also, Trullo is here. I didn't say hello to her. Let's see anybody else here I didn't see. Let's see. Let's see here. Anyone else? TT's here. Hi, TT. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Hello to Adam. Good. All my fun. Nick M. Nice to see you, buddy. Ralphie. How you doing? Let's see who else is here. Anyone else I missed? A lot of talk going on. Bambi, how are you? Good to see you. A lot of back and forth going on here. Very cool. All right. So that's my story for tonight. Anybody else want to talk about anything else? I'm happy to let you. I'm happy to entertain it. But that's my story. I would really have rather done it out by the fire, but it's just downpouring now. This was not practical. Could not do it. And yeah, it's pouring down there, huh? Near Stiggs? Yeah. Big Bones, how are you? Yeah, it's summer rain, right? Instead of the summer wind, it's the summer rain. The Last Dutchman's, yeah, I've heard that story. Yep. A lot of superstitions around that. Yep. The Lost Dutchman's Mine. Yep. There's actually a movie, I think, about that. I remember seeing an old movie about that. Well, thank you, Citrullo. I'm glad you liked it. Thanks, Ralph. I appreciate it. Gina, thank you. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Mike. Yeah, people do die. That was one of the bases of the story. People die looking for that gold. Crazy what people will do. Crazy, just crazy. So this old fashioned is nice libation to sip. And like I said, this little book here it's nice. It's entertaining. It's little short stories. Like the stories are not more than 4 or 5 pages long. They're really short stories. And there's 100 of them. So, you take a good time reading through it. And you're never going to be bored because they're so short. The short stories are so short. And it's, see how many pages, about 500 pages. Nice little thing I picked up years ago. And then it was on my bookshelf and I pulled it out and said, let me see what this is all about. And that's where the origin of that story, the story's from this book. Oh yeah, TT, go back and listen to the whole. Go back and listen to the whole thing if you want. If you're bored, I think it's the story's good if you follow it through. It's really it's like it's like a classic ghost story. You'd I think you'd like it. Good night, Citrullo. Thank you for stopping in. I appreciate it. Don McHugh, good to see you. The Basil is sailing down the Ave. Well, my Basil loves, Basil loves the water. Come on, the Basil's fine. Basil loves the rain. So do the tomatoes. Actually, all of the garden loves the rain. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining. I'm going to sign off. It was great to see you. I really appreciate the support, and I hope you enjoyed the little story there. So until next time, I will say, build the guild. Please help me out and like this, and watch it. The watch hours are what I'm really trying to get, because I'm just so far away from watch hour goals. It's pathetic. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. So any watch hours you can give me by watching is helpful. I do appreciate that. Roadhog. Hey, how are you? How are you, Roadhog? Yeah, have a great weekend, Adam. Yeah, you too. Everyone in the chat, have a great weekend. It should be nice. I think the rain will be gone, at least in my area. The rain's going to be gone for tomorrow. I think Sunday some more rain's going to come in, but what have you? That's how it goes. And I'm sure that Stiggs will have a morning show tomorrow, so tune into that. And Thindu in the afternoon. And Arm Distance, how you doing? 118 Madonna. Mike F. I don't know how you live out there. I really don't. I could never tolerate that stuff. No way. No way. Thank goodness it doesn't get that hot here. I don't know what I'd do. All right, guys. Well, listen, have a great night. Have a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching. I am signing out. The candle's out. And it's on to Saturday. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.